joining us now for World Brief and to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsoya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Vinvai. Good to see you, ladies. How are you both doing?
Doing great.
Good. Happy to hear it. Let me tell you about what's happening around the world. Ladies, we are 4 days away. It's the 1st of November. We are 4 days away from the US elections. And naturally, both main candidates, that's Kamala Harris, of course, and Donald Trump, they've both been trying to shore up Latin votes. Latino votes, Latina votes, Latinx votes. That's why they've been focusing their campaigns yesterday in areas in states like Arizona and Nevada. We did hear that Jennifer Lopez came out again. Kamala Harris trying to leverage star power once again, bringing out Jennifer Lopez and a very famous Mexican band at her rallies in those areas. But what I actually want to talk to you today about is Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has filed a lawsuit against news network CBS for $10 billion. He is upset and he feels as though that CBS have clearly behaved wrongly when it comes to Kamala Harris's interview on the news network. Now, all of this hinges on an answer Kamala Harris gave to a question about what is happening in the Middle East, what's going on with Benjamin Netanyahu, why is he not listening to what the United States have to say. And essentially what Donald Trump is saying is that when the CBS 60 Minutes version of the Kamala Harris interview aired, her answer to that question about the Middle East was very jumbled, was watery, it wasn't a strong response. But he's alleging that when that portion of the interview aired for CBS's Face of the Nation show, that a completely different answer was given, intentionally doctoring and misleading the public. He said this on stage at his rally. Let's take a listen to what he had to say and why he's upset.
So she answered a question. It was a question. She gave this long, crazy... If you read the answer, you would say there's something wrong with her. So you know what 60 Minutes did? Can you imagine them doing that for me? They took it was a very long answer. You just went on and on, just words. Didn't mean anything. 60 Minutes and CBS cut it all out, and they took another answer for a meaningless question and they put it up there. Do you know that, right? They put it up there. They took it and they put it up, and they replaced an answer that would show that she's not qualified cognitively, as I would like to say. I think she should take a cognitive test. She's not qualified. They took it out in its entirety, and they took another answer from someplace else and they put it in. That's called election interference fraud, okay? So we sued them today, and I think CBS should lose its license.
So a very animated conversation there from Donald Trump. He's not happy with CBS at all. He believes that what they've done for Kamala Harris, they would have never done to him. And in terms of a legal positioning, he says that what CBS has done, CBS has, of course, vehemently denied the allegations against him. But what Trump alleges is that what CBS has done is in violation of a Texas law which bars deceptive acts in the conduct of business. So we'll see how that goes. Now, from one lawsuit to the other. This time, Pepsi and Coca-Cola are in the hot seat, with Los Angeles County taking them to court, filing a lawsuit against them because they believe that these huge drinks, beverage companies, these bottling companies have been misleading the public when it comes to the recyclability of their products. These single-use plastics, they say, are contributing to so much plastic pollution in their county. It's significant because Los Angeles County is the most populous county in the United States. And clearly they are saying, these attorneys generals are saying that what they're seeing with this plastic pollution problem is that these companies are becoming far more powerful, being able to continue to contribute to environmental damage to this plastic pollution problem, and then at the same time misleading the public and telling them that their bottles are 100% recyclable or very much so recyclable, when in actuality the materials used to make these bottles aren't recyclable. Funnily enough, it's something that I talked about in a report looking at the plastic pollution problem in Nigeria, specifically Lagos. And we do know that In Nigeria, at the beginning of the year, the Lagos state government, as well as the federal ministries focusing on this issue, did ban the use of single-use plastics. But essentially, it comes down to enforcement, doesn't it? So what we're seeing here is, again, not just one part of the country, but indeed lots of different regions of the world taking a hardline stance when it comes to plastic pollution and single-use plastics. So we're hearing this in Los Angeles. As I said, this is something that the federal government in Nigeria have also done. The state government in Lagos too, but also the European Union. They have also complained formally against Pepsi and Coca-Cola, but also about Nestle. Let's not forget that in New York too, ExxonMobil was also in the firing line because of the polymers it uses and produces in order to create these single-use plastics. So a very interesting topic today, where people are looking at the prospect of these huge corporations being taken to task when it comes to the contributing factor they have when it comes to plastic pollution. Ladies, love to hear your thoughts.
All right, thank you so much, Adefemi. Let me start off with Trump. 4 days to election, like you said, and he has filed a lawsuit where he's asking for $10 billion, saying that that interview, or the doctoring, the alleged doctoring of the interview by CBS, deliberate doctoring, I might add, has damaged his, his campaign efforts, and that's why he has sued. Now, the first thing I'd like to tackle is where he's filed this application, the U.S. District Court in Northern Texas, and some people have accused him of judge shopping. Why? Because the lone judge there, who would possibly be assigned the case, I think his name is Justice of the Amarillo Division, Matthew Kaczmarek, was appointed by Trump when he was president. And a lot of Republicans, according to a watch, since 2021 have assigned 14 politically sensitive cases to that particular court because they believe that the judge might be sensitive or be at least a bit, will I use the word partial to their case in this regard. So that's one aspect to park it aside. Now, going to the law, the Northern Texas law you mentioned, under which he's contesting or he's suing, is the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Consumer Protection Act. The interesting thing about this act is that it was designed to protect consumers, as the name suggests, against advertisers who lie about their products, saying that it will do X and it doesn't have the capacity to do that. Now, the contestation by CBS is that they were not advertising. It was an interview with Kamala Harris, but Trump is saying that millions of Americans, including residents of Texas, were confused and misled by the two doctored videos. So he would have to prove in court that it's tantamount to advertising. That interview could be termed under advertising, and that it was deliberately done in such a way as to mislead people by telling them something that's not true about the product that was being advertised. That's a difficult one. I mean, a number of people have also referred to the First Amendment, which is supposed to protect press freedom and protect news agencies or news media outlets like the CBS from such frivolous, what they've described as frivolous and irresponsible lawsuits like this. So a number of things to say, but let's see, he will get his day in court. Let's see if this will shake anything, if his claims would have any merit, or if indeed, like some people have suggested, he ought to be fined for wasting court time and processes.
All right. Now, still on the U.S. election and Donald Trump, I mean, all gloves are off at this point because, the other thing that's happening, while they're all clamoring for the Latino votes is the fact that there's still the fallout from that statement from President Joe Biden where he's said to have inferred, or rather he called Trump supporters garbage. Of course, this was in response to the rally that took place in New York that was said to be relatively where a lot of racist slurs, that was a Trump rally where there were some racist slurs that came out of it. And I believe one of the speakers said that Puerto Rico is an island of floating garbage. And so President Joe Biden was commenting on that and said that, oh, well, they're all garbage, referring to Trump supporters. Well, the controversy around that now is that the White House has gone to change the transcript of that phone call. So the stenographer has that statement saying that Joe Biden did in fact call Trump supporters garbage, but they're trying to doctor it and alter it so that it doesn't look that bad. However, now Kamala Harris has had to come out, and this is the first time in the campaign we're seeing her distancing herself from Joe Biden and saying that, oh no, she does not support the name calling of any political supporters, even though they're against her. But I think it's a bigger conversation around some of the, I don't want to call it manipulation, let me call it the management of information that one is able to do when they're the incumbent. You know, the power of the incumbent exists all around. Very quickly, on the plastic bottles, I really, really, really miss the days of, do you remember the glass bottles where you would take your glass bottle back and, you know, you use it as your deposit,
yes.
and then I really miss that era. Yes, the crates. So, and it's healthier as well, you know, so I really miss those days, and, you know, I wish we could just go back to those glass bottles of Coke, because I mean, that's what I grew up on. But I believe we're going to move on to newspaper headlines now.
Thank you very much, Vimbai. Again, let's take a look at our newspapers. We'll begin in Nigeria with the front page of This Day. And today, This Day newspaper leads with news that all 36 state governors have opposed the importation of petrol because they believe imports will work against the newly established Dangote refinery. They've also urged the federal government to intensify efforts to repair the already existing refineries in Warri, in Kaduna, and of course in Port Harcourt. Moving on to the front page of the New Telegraph. And the New Telegraph reports that the House of Representatives has directed its Committee on AIDS, Loans and Debt Management to carry out a comprehensive audit of all loans obtained by both the federal and state governments since May 1999. That figure stands currently at 121.67 trillion naira, a huge amount there. Now, The Guardian's front page looks at how to lift millions from poverty to prosperity via local initiatives. This is as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is planning a visit to Nigeria. He should be arriving at some point this month of November. And again, it's going to be highlighting the collaboration between Narendra Modi, India, with Nigeria, and of course President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as part of efforts to establish greater ties with the global south and again foster the internal movements and mechanizations in the country that would allow many more people, hopefully more Nigerians, to be taken out of poverty and moved more closer to prosperity. Now, meanwhile, the Daily Trust, the Daily Independent and the Tribune all lead with the NEC calling on President Tinubu to withdraw the controversial tax reform bill. Now, you'll remember just a few days ago, Northern governors had kicked out against this bill, saying that it was against their own interests regionally. But you've come out and you've had, like Bayo Onanuga, of course, President Tinubu, also say that that's not the case and still trying to push for the adoption and the acceptance of this proposal. It doesn't look too clear just yet. Clearly, as I said, the presidency has denied that this bill seeks to undermine northern interests, but that is the stalemate we're finding ourselves in. But also, if we look at the front page of the Daily Trust, in addition to looking at the rejection of this tax reform bill, the Daily Trust also has news of the at least 16 people who have died following a building collapse in Ibadan. Now, the Punch, it also leads with this mass rejection of the tax proposal on its front page, but it also features an update on this crashed helicopter in River State. We did talk about this yesterday and about how even a week later, significant debris hadn't been recovered yet. The black boxes hadn't been found. Not all of the 8 bodies had been recovered. Yesterday, we talked about how another body had been recovered, taking the recovered bodies to 5, and 3 remain missing. That's still the case today. However, according to according to the Punch this morning, they have been able to receive and collect some wreckage from the site of that downed helicopter. Now, finally, if we take a look at the Vanguard is reporting on the federal government giving a 9-month grace period to those keeping their forex out of the banking system. Now, coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, says that this buffer essentially will allow people to comply with this directive without attracting any type of legal liability or financial penalties. So again, the federal government opening their arms wide to Nigerians, saying, come in, bring your Forex into the country, reinsert it into the official banking system within the next 9 months, and you won't have any legal consequences to worry about. If we move on now to the African papers now, the Daily Graphic of Kenya, it does look about how this new education curriculum is being implemented starting today. This will affect different high schools across the country. Again, you see the government making these different movements. Again, we do know that Ghana will go to the elections, go to the general elections at the end of the year on December 7th. And so this is another push towards that. There's also conversations about this quite controversial, they're calling it an anti-gay bill, and the financial ramifications of that is also featured on the front page of the Daily Graphic of Ghana. And then if we look at the Daily Nation of Kenya this morning, the Daily Nation of Kenya has news that former teacher of law, Kithure Kindiki, will be sworn in as deputy president today at a ceremony in Nairobi, I believe it is. He is, of course, going to be replacing the loud departure of former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who fought tooth and nail to keep his position, but unfortunately was unable to do so. Ladies, let's hear your thoughts.
All right, let me talk about, because we've talked about the tax reform, just giving a few more details around that, and how when there are bold reforms like this, the president must be bold to stick with it. I wish that when there was the announcement of the fuel subsidy removal and the unification of the foreign exchange, we had had more calls like this and asked for a suspension for wider consultation, rather than something that would benefit the country in terms of making the tax system more efficient and making subnationals a bit more responsible. Now they're kicking against it. So it just goes to show priorities sometimes when it comes to the effect on the people that they govern. But let me look at the building collapses that have happened in recent times. I say that because we report what happened in the early hours of Thursday, about 2 a.m. in Onuara, local government of Oyo State, Ibadan. And a few days before then, in Sabon Lugbe area of Abuja, there was a building collapse reported. It said that in about 2 years, we've had about 22 building collapses and more around the country. And so this is a cause for concern. A lot of times it's been talking about safety and maintenance and also regulations and people trying to cut corners. There have been a lot of reasons for this, but if we're losing lives as a result of buildings that do not meet standard procedure, or some people are able to cut short and endanger people's lives, then we should talk about it. And those who are responsible ought to be brought to book. So I'm hoping that the government will investigate the cause of both what's happened in Ibadan and in Abuja, and then all those who are culpable be brought to book. If we don't have very strict or stiff penalties, whether from the government side of things or the builder side of things or even the occupant side of things, then we'll continue to see this unnecessary loss of lives in Nigeria. And our condolences and to the families of those who've lost lives in these unfortunate collapses.
Right. Now, Adefemi, I want to start with the Vanguard because I know you focused on another story, but the headline there was so bold. I believe it said that there's hunger in the land, governors admit, back Tinubu. Yeah. So, the governors are now finally coming out and admitting that there is hunger. You remember when the protests, just before the protests were setting in before the 1st of August, there was, all sorts of communication around, is there hunger? Is there no hunger? Is there? Well, now I'm glad that the governors are coming out and they're saying there is hunger. Yes, they back the president, but there's hunger in the land. In that same meeting, I believe Governor Hope Uzodinma said that, well, relief is coming soon. I'm not sure people are ready to hear about relief coming soon at the moment. We needed relief like yesterday. However, one significant development from that report was the fact that the National Security Advisor, the NSA, has appointed a liaison officer who's now going to work closely with the governor of each state with regards to efforts to try and see what can be done with regards to mitigating insecurity. With all the developments that have happened in the past few days specifically, it's clear that the security situation is becoming very, very, very volatile in a number of places. So I think this is a good stopgap measure while we're waiting to see whether the conversation on state policing is going to move forward or whether it's going to, we don't know what's going to happen with that. But I'm glad that there's some sort of progressive action being taken, which is that now the NSA will be more directly involved with what's happening in each state. Now, very quickly before we go, I know you didn't take this, but it's because it just broke just a few minutes ago. But it's a story I know you've been invested in, which is the election in Botswana. The incumbent president is now the outgoing president. Mokgweetsi Masisi has conceded defeat. Now, of course, he leads the BDP, which has been in power for 58 years. You never, ever hear these types of stories of African parties that have been sitting tight for so long. And he has conceded defeat and congratulated the winner, who is Duma Boko of the Umbrella Democratic Party, the UDP of Botswana. So changes happening there, opposition figures coming into power. So it's good to see that, you know, democracy is well and alive in some parts of Africa.
Absolutely, absolutely. As you said, Vimbai, it's very rare these days that we see African leaders do the sportsmanship thing, the sportsmanlike thing, and actually concede defeat instead of having elections constantly ending in the courtroom. So it is quite refreshing to see that even though this is a huge loss for President Masisi, who of course was looking for a second term in office, it is also refreshing to see that politics and democracy in Botswana clearly is setting a good and positive example. We do know that the quality of democracy in Botswana, even before the elections, was quite strong. And it is, as you said, quite historic to see this shift. You know, a few weeks ago, we were also looking at the elections in Mozambique and whether or not Frelimo were going to hold on to power. Clearly they did. That's clearly not the case here in Botswana. But again, always good to see what's happening around the world. Thank you, ladies.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adefemi, and have yourself a great weekend.